How's it going, everyone? Andy here from 4K Downtime, here to do a follow-up video to our Ni no Kuni 2 Let's Play. I wanted to do a follow-up video mainly due to when I was playing it with Tom. During that time we only did about the first hour, or not even that, it's only about 40 minutes. And because I was playing his copy at the time, yeah, so my impressions obviously was just based on that 40 minutes that I had with it. So I decided to make another video, well, a follow-up, just so I could, because I managed to get my hands on the game just about 2 days ago, and I've been playing it for quite a bit, and I still haven't really gone to, like, the main meat of the story yet. This is purely because I've only played about the first 10 hours, and I wanted to make this video now just simply because by the time when I did manage to be here, when I'm about 50-60 hours in, I think the game will be considered too old by that point, and I don't really think anyone would care as much what I have to say during that time. So I decided to make a follow-up video just to talk about my overall thoughts on these first 10 hours. So yeah, I'm not putting this as a review or whatsoever, because I haven't actually played enough of it to even consider this a full-fledged out review. So this is just literally like first thoughts on the first 10 hours of it, and that's purely based on it. I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, because the first 10 hours, to be fair, from what I've played of it, doesn't really spoil a whole lot, mind you. So I just want to start off with the graphics and the overall presentation. Of course, if you don't know, I just do a little rundown for you. Ni no Kuni 2 is a game that is collaboration between Level 5, which are most well known for games like Rogue Galaxy, I believe that RPG was called, on the PlayStation 2, which was a great game, by the way. They were known for Professor Layton, as well as games like White Knight Chronicles 1 and 2, and of course the first Ni no Kuni. Now, what makes Ni no Kuni really special compared to some of their other projects was that it was the first game that they actually did a collaboration with Studio Ghibli, which is, if you don't know, it's formed by Hayao Miyazaki, who is one of the key people. If you watch things like animes and stuff, chances are you would definitely know who he is. He makes a lot of really amazing films inside Studio Ghibli, like My Neighbor is Totoro, Spirited Away, and a ton of other as well. So when this collaboration was first announced, yeah, many people were very excited, because Studio Ghibli is mostly obviously just known for doing films, so to have their inspiration in the video game got a lot of people excited. So the first game was successful enough for them to spawn a sequel. Now, one thing I do want to quickly address is that compared to the first game, which was an actual collaboration between the two, this one apparently Studio Ghibli isn't exactly properly involved with it. Instead, there's a couple of people from that studio that came over to help out with the game. So this one is not. So this one, I guess you could say, is more of a level 5 game than it is an actual collaboration between the two. But with that said, though, I still have to say I think this game looks absolutely gorgeous. As a matter of fact, yeah, I'll go so far as to say this is, to me, the best looking game on the PS4. Now, this could be due to my preference in graphic style, but I just felt like this game just looks gorgeous. Everything area that I go to, the character models, their animations and everything. I even like such little details like their idle animations when you go into the menus. I thought that was really well done. So everything regarding the overall presentation, I don't really have anything to complain about. I think the only thing, a little bit of gripe I can say I've got yet, is that I felt some of the environments that you're in, well, some of them looks absolutely gorgeous. If you've played it, you go to a place, I think it's called the Gold Pour or something like that, the Gold Pour or something like that. Yeah, I can't really remember the precise name, which is it's Chinese themed, and as soon as you walk in here, it's like it looks amazing. This area was hands down one of the most gorgeous one out of all of them. But then there was some, if you would go into the wastelands and the canyons, it's where it looks a bit not much really happening. It's essentially what it is. It's just a canyon. Then that was about it. But other than that, I don't really have anything to complain. The beautiful watercolor designs and textures just looks amazing. So yeah, regarding the graphics, I could really gush over for another hour, but I'll just leave it at that. That simply just looks great. Now, as far as I don't want to go much into the story, just simply because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Simply just put, it's a story about a guy named Evan, who I thought was a girl at first. Before I knew his name was Evan, I've always thought like, oh, this main character seems to be a child, even though like you see him wearing a crown, like, even on the box art, but it's just something I never noticed at first. But yeah, it's about a guy named Evan whose father has died, and he's about to become a king, but unfortunately something went wrong. He's about to get assassinated. This guy called Roland, who came, as far as I know, like, he's not like from the future. He just simply got transported from our world, like, to their world, and they're basically trying to help Evan to build back, like, a new kingdom, because his kingdom's been stolen. So Roland is helping him to build back a new kingdom, and on his journey he meets another bunch of characters who would aid him in his quest. But that's about, like, the only thing that is related to the story that I want to talk about, because I myself haven't really even seen much of it, to be perfectly honest, because like I said, I'm only 10 hours in, so story wise that's about it. Now here's the thing that really made me enjoy the game. It's the battle system. Now it's an action RPG, so the battle is fast and it's fun as well. Now there are, like, obviously RPG elements to it. You got, like, you mix light with strong attacks with weak attacks as well. There are mechanics like the tactical tweaker, which is a control slider that allows you to add certain perks, for example resistance against magic, like, to increase your offense and defense and that kind of stuff. Some characters are able to use magic, like, different kind of magic, like, fire, ice, lightning, that kind of stuff. All of this works very well. It's very similar to the how should I put it, it's very similar to the Tales games. If you've ever played the Tales games, it's very action oriented like that, but in my opinion I actually like this one more. So the combat itself is like I said, very fast, and you have your main weapons, which if you use, every character has a main weapon where he will either hold a sword, an axe, or in some cases, like, a spear. But they also have a secondary weapon. A secondary weapon is where, like, it's basically a long range weapon. So Roland has a gun, Evan has a wand which you can cast spells, and then later on one of your characters that joins you, she uses a bow, and then I'm pretty sure like some of the later characters have the same kind of build as well. So you basically mixed up, like, light with strong attacks, along with some you get skills as well. So every character have their own skills that is equipped to the main weapon that they're using. So Roland will have, like, particular sword skills, and then Evan will have sword skills, but because he's also somewhat kind of like a mage as well, so he has, like, strong magic attacks. So it's all about using these attacks in the right using the right time, because if you use your skill attacks, it actually costs, because you have like 5 orbs above on your characters, and as you keep attacking, these orbs will light up individually, and each time when it lights up, depending on what skill you're using, if you're like one skill, probably you only use 1 orb. If there's like a skill that requires 2, you will use 2. Now these, like, obviously means that the combat has quite a bit of depth and everything. Now, and it does, to be fair, like, it is very fast paced, and I just love, like, doing these battles. But I do have one complaint in this area. Not necessarily a flaw, I think it's just something that, because I played a lot of JRPGs here, so this thing that kind of bothered me a little bit. You've got a lot of skills at your disposal, but unfortunately the challenge isn't really up to this. It's like they throw you a lot of these mechanics and everything like that that could actually help you to make the battle even easier, but the challenge simply isn't there. Most of the battles that I've fought up until this point, yeah, I won them. I've never really, like, lost any battles at all. I actually haven't died once, whether it's against bosses or against, like, new enemies that I've never encountered before. To simply put it, it's like I feel like in a lot of these situations, the battle is usually dipped heavily into your favor, because you rarely ever encounter enemies, in my opinion, dangerous enough to really kill you. And even if you did actually do encounter, like, some enemies with really strong attacks or something like that, what you can do is that you can instantly just, like, press like I think it's not the PlayStation button, like the actual touchpad. If you press the actual touchpad, it automatically pauses the game for you, and it brings up the item menu, so you can instantly just heal your characters if they're about to die, or in some cases if they die completely, you just need to basically use something which is equivalent to the Final Fantasy Phoenix Down, where it just revives your character completely with a little bit of health. And because it does that, yeah, so even if you are in danger, if you do actually encounter an enemy that it's literally, let's say, giving you a lot of trouble, as long as you've got healing items, you're not dying just yet. So if you ran out, then obviously you're gonna have to restart the battle all over again. But other than that, yeah, I just felt like the battles are simply a bit too easy. Now I have spoke to a few friends of mine who are actually far into it. As a matter of fact, Tom is one of the guys that I've spoken to, and as far as I know, he is much more like deeper in the game than I am, and even then he seems to like say that yeah, the game is just quite easy, like it's pretty smooth sailing, like all the way through. And I felt like with a combat system like this, yeah, they really could have made certain battles a bit more harder. Not to say you wouldn't encounter enemies that will probably give you a lot of shit, because there are certain enemies on the map here where there are enemies known as the Tainted. So they are basically regular enemies, but they've got this purple energy around them, and each time when you're about to fight them, because they act really differently compared to the standard one that you roam around the world and encounter. To encounter these ones, you actually have to walk directly to them, and then a message will pops up. Okay, this enemy's been tainted, would you like to fight him? It will tell you that, okay, what level he is currently on. So obviously if you're like, let's say level 20 and this tainted creature is level 43 for example, then obviously you're not going to fight him because you're definitely going to get your ass handed to you. But even if I fight one that it's about as closest to my level, sure, he's definitely tougher than like the regular ones that I face. But again, because you could instantly pause at any time, yeah, and just heal your party away, it definitely takes away the challenge. Because if you stock up on healing items, which even if you don't buy any, you do come across a lot just simply by discovering chests or just by beating enemies up. So you will always kind of have recovery items on you, and if you just keep recovering yourself away, yeah, it will be only a matter of time, yeah, until you were just gonna beat him. It might take a little bit longer, but you will still get there. And that to me, it's one of the aspects that I guess you could say that bothers me a little bit. Although, like the other side of the sword, yeah, is that this is actually a game that I can recommend to pretty much anybody. Let's say like if you're into Ni no Kuni 1 already, then like or you're into JRPGs in general, this is definitely a must-have. Like I really enjoyed it that much, so it's easy to recommend. But even let's say if you're someone who has never really got into JRPGs before and you want to get into it, but you just simply got too many to choose from, you not know which one is the best starting point, I actually would say Ni no Kuni 2 is a great starting point for anybody who's trying to just get into JRPGs. The challenge is beginner friendly. The mechanics is very easy to learn. None of it is really that complex. And they introduce obviously little bit by bit to you, so it's not like they're trying to stuff so much in you right from the get-go that so you have to try to learn to adapt and everything. No, like it's very simple. Like the first few battles literally just walks you through it. So like I said, this is actually very beginner friendly. So if you're just looking to get into JRPGs, yeah, I could easily recommend this. It's not difficult at all. So aside from the main combat, there's also kingdom building as well, which in this mode plays a lot more different than obviously the main combat, but this also plays a pretty vital role in the actual game aside from the combat. Because Evan is a king, so the part of the story is the fact that he wanted to build a new kingdom because the kingdom he's from has been taken away from him. So him and Roland is building like a new kingdom, and because of that, yeah, you basically need citizens in your kingdom. And one of the key features, yeah, is that you need to basically build different facilities like for your kingdom. So you kind of need a blacksmith, you need an items shop like for selling potions and stuff, you need the restaurants that will cook food and everything, and of course like need a land so you could farm for corpses and stuff. So what you basically have to do is like you get money in your kingdom, which is completely different from the currency that you actually earn in the main game. Now with that currency you use here is to build different facilities, like I've said, and whenever you build a facility that's not already done, you actually need to get certain people to actually run the store, and you can't just pick any people either. So that, let's say like, you know, if you want somebody to run your restaurant, obviously you're gonna need like, you know, somebody with cooking experience and stuff. Now this is where like, you know, the citizens comes in. You kind of need to go to different I guess you could say different kingdoms and recruit certain like, you know, citizens from their land over to come to join you. Then this goes into the whole thing of you have to do side quests as well, because they don't actually, because once you find them out, they don't actually just come to your kingdom and then that's it. Usually 9 out of 10 times, yeah, it's like they will ask you to do a little mini side quest, which this is part of the another area that I personally wasn't too fond of. It's the fact that most of these side quests, they're simply just fetch quests. They're either fetch quests or they just ask you to go there to kill a particular enemies or just collect X amount of items, and then okay, they're happy now, so they will come over to your kingdom. And once you've actually recruited them over to your kingdom, you like decide what job works best for them, and then you put them in that particular store. And during that store you could also do things such as do some research, like, you know, so you could have more different variations of like, you know, food and weapons and potions that you can actually buy inside your kingdom. Now this is one thing that I've heard a bit of, obviously a mixed opinion. Some people liked it and some people personally think it drags the game down, because like I said, the kingdom building plays a pretty vital role. It's not actually something that is optional, whether or not if you wanted to do it. Apparently, like, you know, it plays a pretty vital role, like especially later on in the game, which I haven't got to that part yet, so I can't really judge it. But based on what I've doing it now, I do really enjoy it. But if it's something that you absolutely, if it's kind of like a roadblock that you can't actually advance the story until you get certain things to a certain level, because your facilities are all graded, like, you know, D being the lowest and then obviously A being the highest. So maybe they need you to get at a certain grade at a certain point in the story, so then you maybe, so that pretty much just means that okay, you have to drop whatever you're doing and you just have to focus on building your kingdom. But from what I've experienced, like I said, so far I liked it, but whether or not if I'm going to continue liking it towards the end, yeah, that remains to be seen. Another thing that has a bit of like, you know, hit and miss with people, yeah, are these things called I think they were called skirmish battles or something like that. I can't remember the actual name, excuse me. But this essentially is quite a bare bones strategy game. What it is kind of like Evan takes charge of, like, you know, different units, and the idea is to basically fight off other units in these little mini chibi sized versions of yourselves. And they have something similar to Fire Emblem, where, like, you know, they have the weapon triangle, like, you know, I think arrow beats swords, swords beats axes or something like that. Basically, yeah, they have the similar weapon triangle to Fire Emblem. And then there are things that you could get that allows you to do special skills that, like, you know, you could get call people to come in, like, you know, fly by to drop some missiles down. And all that kind of that particular game, I thought was, again, it works, but it's nothing more than just kind of like a little minor distraction. But I've only done about 2 or 3 of them, like one of them being the first tutorial level, but then after that I think I've only done about 2. So this one, they don't seem to rub it in your face. It seems to be just kind of something that you can do if you really want to. If you don't, there's no harm in it. And finally, I think the last little bit of criticism that I really want to address right is the frame rate for the most part runs pretty good. So in terms of its performance, I'm actually very happy. However, during certain fights, especially if it consists of, like, I'll say 10 characters on screen, or if it's just a really big creature that you're fighting, the frame rate can take quite a bit of a hit, and sometimes it takes a little while before the frame rate actually recovers. And another place where there's quite a bit of a frame rate dip, which I was quite surprised, to be honest with you, is the overworld. In the overworld, you're traveling around in your kind of like chibi-fied versions of yourself, yeah, just wandering around this overworld. And for some reason, the frames is skipping constantly. It almost seems like it has trouble running smoothly. which I really don't understand why, but it's definitely there. And I thought it was a bit awkward at first because this game had quite a bit of an update just before when I actually, after I initially installed the entire game, so didn't really understand that. And just another maybe little minor thing as well is that the voice acting I really do like, but the scenes of where they have voice acting and where they don't have, it's very inconsistent. Sometimes you will literally be watching a cutscene that fully voiced it and everything, all great, and then quickly the next scene, quickly jumps to it, and it's not like the cutscene have stopped. It still felt like a cutscene, but all of a sudden then it's dialogue boxes, and then you have to start to read. And sometimes with these dialogue boxes, is that certain scenes, when you do see dialogue boxes, they are still fully voice acted for some reason. So I don't really understand that. It feels very inconsistent with the whole game, especially when you get those moments where it's supposed to be kind of these big emotional speeches and stuff, and to see the first part being voiced and then quickly the second scenes that followed has no voice in it, it feels a little distracting for me. But other than that, that's really the only real complaints I had at the moment in terms of my 10-hour playtime. I'm really enjoying it, and I felt like the game is fantastic. It's hands down, it might actually be my favorite PS4 exclusive so far. I loved it that much, and any sort of complaints I had with it is pretty minor. Now granted, this could very well change. Maybe by the time I finished it, some of the things that didn't bother me might become a nuisance. Who knows? But in terms of where I am at the moment, I'm really having a great time with it. I definitely hope this game sells well, because it seems like it's not one of those titles that everybody is rushing out to get, which is such a shame, because I felt like this game definitely deserves really good sales. And because, like, aside from it being great, I did feel like it seems like it's a good entry point for a lot of people as well. Like I said, if you're looking forward to getting into JRPGs and you simply just don't know where to start yet, please give this one a go. It's really good. The story, while simple, but it's interesting purely because the characters are so great as well. Like, the combat is very fast and fluid. It's very easy to get into as well. It's not very complex. You could easily just pick up and play with. It's actually kind of like, it's very mainstream in the sense here that it's similar to kind of Persona 5, where it's very easy to understand everything that what the game is actually asking the player to do. So if you're into JRPGs, definitely get it. If you love Ni no Kuni 1, I'm pretty sure you've already gotten it as well. So so that's my thoughts on the first 10 hours on Ni no Kuni 2. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. We very much appreciate it. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and giving it a like. If not, you can hit a dislike. And I probably will do another follow-up to it, depend on how long it actually took me to beat this game. If it doesn't take me that long, then I probably will do another follow-up, which will conclude my overall thoughts of the game. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'll try if I can, but if I couldn't, then I'll just leave it at that. The game is great, so go get it if you're into this kind of stuff. But anyway, guys, this is Andy from 4K Downtime signing off. Have a good one.